Hello, welcome to Talent Treasures. This is Nancy Maki, and this is our opportunity to talk with friends about their unique talents as measured by the CliftonStrengths 34 profile. And joining me today is Ben Rushwald, and Ben has a top talent called Arranger. And so, Ben, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule today.
My pleasure. Happy to be here with you, Nancy.
Yeah, and Arranger's a really unique talent. Just to give a little context before we get started, people high in the Arranger theme have a real ability to organize, yet at the same time, you have a real flexibility that complements that organizational skill. And you're also comfortable with a lot of moving parts, sort of like if you think of a director of musicians or something like that. Does that resonate with you?
It does. I think it resonates a lot with me. When you first shared kind of my top area was arranger, I said, just hearing the word, I'm like, I don't think that's me. And then you start kind of looking at the bullets and talk to him like, oh no, that's definitely me. That fits well for me. So yeah, I think as understanding it, I think that's the key is really like, what does that mean? What kind of
Right.
characteristics fit that? And I realized pretty quick
Yeah.
that was spot on for me.
That's it. And they say when it's your number one talent theme, it's almost as subconscious as breathing. So we're not even thinking about it when we're using that theme. But how do you see? I mean, you're a manager. You're managing a lot of things and people, and you're very busy. How does that play out throughout your day? How do you see it show up?
Well, I think first to your point that you don't even it's like breathing, it's like a fish being in water kind of thing. I
Hmm.
didn't even really realize it was a talent or skill. I think at first it was just, doesn't everyone do this? Isn't this like normal? So first off, I think it was really helpful for me to recognize internally we all doubt ourselves and say, should
Right.
I be in this role? And I do, just like everyone else. And so
Right.
saying this, oh, this is a skill, this is something I bring to the table that not everyone brings, that I can provide value, I think was really helpful for me to recognize I have something to contribute, because I was just thinking, hey, this is, everyone does this, isn't, I'm nothing
Right.
special on this. And so that was just for my own self, recognizing that it is a skill, it is value. And then, and because it is something natural and something I enjoy doing, something that comes to me, and something I want to do. When I'm in different meetings and tend to spend a lot of time working with many different work groups, trying to solve problems, which tend to be the most challenging ones, the ones across multiple work groups, I look for those opportunities. I see them. Those are the
Mhm.
first things that pop to my mind, because those are the things that are my preferences. Like, this is what I can do. This is what I can contribute. So I look and see those things, I think naturally first, which in some ways enables other people to do their part, because some
Yeah.
people at times want to be able to do their aspect of it, but they're not able to connect with the different people, or there's just some barriers and some things holding folks back, or we're not all aligned in the same direction. And so I find kind of it's where I enjoy going. And then when I do that, it frees up and allows people to do their piece of the puzzle, or project together as a team.
Awesome. Well, that's really kind of a nice lead into another question I wanted to ask you, which is one of the features of the arranger theme is the ability to work efficiently through others. And I imagine that's almost a superpower as a manager, right? It's one of the biggest struggles is we have to achieve our goals through others. So can you dig a little deeper on that? Like, how do you see it playing out in your role as a manager?
Yeah, and then again, I to the point of like uncertainty in myself, I think it says, I was like, what am I really contributing? Because I'm
Mhm.
working through other people. I'm not really doing anything myself. So
Right.
internally, I have to tell myself this is a skill and this is value, and I'm helping folks, and then and this is a strength. And then externally also kind of say, hey, this is yours. You guys are the experts. You're the knowledge. I'm just trying to kind of bring folks together, and you guys are really, so be humble externally to my team and the people I'm working with, and reiterate that you guys know the information, you guys know the standards, the law, the requirements, whatever it may be, and to kind of just kind of nudge people maybe in that direction, and then let them take it from there. And so it's a kind of combination of setting themselves up for success, setting
Right.
them so they can be successful, and then me also kind of aligning it, and then understanding, stepping back when it's appropriate so they can get into those details, because that's not my strength necessarily, getting
Right.
into those details, but getting people aligned, and
Right.
on the same page, and knowing kind of the goal and the objective kind of a high level, and why we're doing it, why this matters, and why we want to work together. those are all kind of areas that I can really, I think, shine. And, though I didn't realize before working with you and talking with you, Nancy, that those are actually skills. So it's
Yeah.
great to really know that from at a conscious level versus kind of a
Right.
subconscious understanding. And then it allows me to think about it and say, okay, this is a strength of mine, arranger. How do I leverage this? How do I use
Hmm.
this to be successful? As an arranger, what would I do to make this hairy situation, this challenging problems? What would be my go-to?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, now you're singing a song that I love to hear because you're describing, like in the CliftonStrengths language, which is aiming your talent, which is actually taking our talents and seeing how we can apply it to different situations. And that's when you're really using your talent as a strength at that point. And it's interesting as you were talking, I'm thinking a ranger is the way you describe it. It's a very nuanced talent, right? And almost one that I think, I mean, if you think of the analogy of the conductor, right? And people look at a conductor managing an orchestra, and it's like, oh, that looks so easy. I could do that, right? And I think your talent is, it looks easy, but it's really not. I mean, does that kind of
Well, I think
speak
ideally,
to
if
you?
I do it well,
Mm-hmm.
it looks like I'm not doing anything, right? It gets back to that point
Right.
that I'm not at anything, or the conductor's like, why are they the highest paid person? Like, why are they in charge? They're not doing anything. They're not playing the instrument.
Right.
What value are they adding? So I think ideally, if I do it well, you can in some ways question kind of what the value is unless you
Mhm.
remove that piece. And
Right.
so, but understanding that's a skill, I think has been really key for me, that I am adding value and
Yeah.
helping folks along. And when we get no's, like I'm not opposed, I hear no. It's not no, we can't do this. It's no, that door's closed. Let's find another route. Let's bring
Ah,
the team around and find another way in.
yeah.
And that's an area that I think I love, hearing about things that we can't do it this way, or you have to pivot and find another solution. You're out of budget, you don't have money for this or that, which we always commonly do, and say, okay, well, we're just going to give up on that idea. It's like, no, if this
Mhm.
is a good idea, how do we stay together and work together, and how do we find a solution? Because that door's closed, that doesn't mean the other door, doors B and C are closed as
Right.
well. And that's where I think also a talent of mine to help us redirect and pivot when we need to another way to be successful in
Mhm.
our goals.
Yeah. Well, and it has to be real, maybe motivating for others. I mean, just listening to you, I think, gosh, it's nice to be with somebody who's thinking, yeah, how do we solve this? How do we break through? And who's always thinking of a way to get things done. Do you find that helpful in trying to motivate?
I do. I try to, and I think it's also important to bring humility and patience and understanding. I have to be careful sometimes because I want to move
Hmm.
quick and change
Hmm.
direction to do this, and that
Hmm.
doesn't work for everyone. So
Right.
there's also an element, a piece of it, to be conscious of my audience and who I'm working with, and what comfort level they have with the change. Because it may be no big deal for me to pivot and change, because I love doing that all the time. It's a
Yeah.
bigger challenge for others. So depending on the group and being conscious of the needs of the group on how to pivot and at what speed and things like that is critical. And then also making sure I'm deferring back to them all the time, because they're the expert. I tend to be
Yeah.
the person with the thin level of knowledge across a larger span, and
Yeah.
so really not taking that too far and making sure I'm staying centered by checking and bringing people along who are the experts who like to delve deep into topics,
Mhm.
and work with them to make sure where we're going makes sense and works for them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and highlight a really good thing, which is also being aware of maybe the fact that our strengths can sometimes get in our way. So having a high degree of self-awareness is also part of learning about our strengths. And so do you find ever there's situations where that top talent of yours sometimes presents a barrier for you? And how might that play out?
Yeah, and I think I've kind of somewhat alluded to that in kind of
Right,
what I've mentioned, is that, yeah, moving too quickly, people feel like, it's the flavor of the month kind of thing.
right.
You're not focused, you're not, you know, in on it, you just kind of fly by. Also in the way in which I engage and talk with folks, whether I'm kind of superficial or a little kind of arrogant at times when I come across. And so really being conscious of those potential pitfalls that come with it, and how to address them head on, and stay connected with folks, and stop and check back in with
Right.
things, like pause and make sure, hey, are we still on the same page? Or are we still on board? Are we still going? Are we still
Right.
okay and go in this direction?
Right.
And that listening, man, just spending a few minutes to listen to folks goes such a long way,
Right.
especially as a leader of a large team, really taking the time to listen to folks.
Yeah.
Usually before I dig into anything,
Mm-hmm.
if I meet with a team I haven't met with for a while, or another team outside of my organization, I don't like go in with any agenda. I just go in to listen first.
Good.
I'm
I
there
like
to
that.
listen. I may have things I want to talk about in future meetings, but the first meeting, I'm just there to listen.
No, that's
And a lot of
great.
times I start with, I have nothing really to say. And then, 40 minutes later, after they keep talking about all the different things, oh, I
Yeah.
guess I did have something to share, and things.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they may say a handful of words, and they're so grateful, and like, I didn't do anything. I just came and listened. And so
Yeah.
that's also really critical, kind of knowing your timing, when to delve in and push your strengths and try to motivate folks, and when
Right.
to stand back and listen is, I think, another way I've tried to be self-aware, and make sure I can be successfully use my strengths, and not turn them into the weaknesses or challenges.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I love how you view listening as really an investment, was what I heard in what you just said. That, yeah, you're investing that time, and maybe to a lot of people it feels like a waste of time, but you're actually seeing the value, that you're actually getting some great dividends from that time that you spent. So that's awesome. And well, it's interesting sometimes to contrast different themes. And so a ranger is very similar to another talent theme called focus. And so a ranger, if you think about one word that is associated with a ranger, is multiplicity, whereas the focus theme is singularity. So where people hire a ranger, again, juggling a lot of balls and plates, maybe a person who's focused is really going to be focused on one single thing. How does that contrast speak to you at all?
Yeah, I do think I fall into the multiple things. I enjoy that aspect of the changing environment, and moving things around. Um, Being aware of that and my strengths and what it is helped me in that, when I take on challenges and I look at it before I dive in and say, okay, there's a piece where we have to get multiple groups and multiple people on board.
Mm-hmm.
That's my area. I can do that. I can bring folks together. I can try to get us all on the same page. But then once we get together in something, then we need to go through, and there's some details we have to work out and put together a process or whatever it may be, and get into the nitty gritty. That's not my area. So
Mm-hmm.
where can I team up? How can I partner with someone who's really good and, high in that skill set
Mm-hmm.
with me? I will work on the part that I do great, and then ask them to lead that other piece.
Yeah.
And in the past, I think I've tried to do it all myself,
Yeah.
and I've gotten through the part of getting everyone on board, and then fallen flat because I
Interesting.
didn't have that same focus skill to dig into those details. And so instead of trying to be a hero and Superman, and do everything myself, and recognize that we all have different strengths, where
Right.
do I find a partner? And again, it's part
Yeah.
of that same kind of thing. It's like working through other people. How do
Right.
I bring someone else on board with that different skill set, and identifying who's got that skill set? I think that's another part of a ranger that I read, that arrangers tend to be good at identifying people's strengths, and
Yeah.
identifying where people can really shine. And so,
Yeah.
how do I identify the problem? What skill sets do we need? And then how do I identify the different people that I work with, to fill in those spots that I don't do well, and
Yeah.
let them shine, and be successful. And overall, the projects in general, when I do that, really come out well.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like you described the process of growing from a talent to a bona fide strength, which is when we really focus on our talent themes, that we just become better and better. And what I heard you saying too is just that ability to let go, which all of us, as we grow in our leadership roles, I think we get better at letting go. I know it's been a process for myself as well. And so, are you feeling like it's really a strength that you've embraced?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And understanding it, and going through the process of reading about it and learning about it, and saying,
Hmm.
and it makes it much more tangible and easier for me to pinpoint and understand that that's a strength. And so,
Hmm.
because I now consciously have a better understanding of that strength, I'm able to leverage it and utilize it more as a conscious choice and decision.
No.
Because when I look back, and again, um, I recognize, and I think part of it is just self-confidence and growth over
Yeah.
time, that I don't
Yeah.
need to try to take on the world, and that's how I'm successful and do everything. Because those are the times that I haven't been so successful.
Right.
And so um, succeeding as a team, as a group, number one, through as an arranger, I like that better. I
Yeah.
enjoy that more
Yeah.
to begin with, and also am more successful. So really kind of having a good, clear understanding of what my strengths are and what they're not, and then how to use those within a group setting is something I think over time matured to really be able to leverage and benefit from.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm curious, if you think about it the other way too, what would you need from a boss to be able to utilize and succeed with your arranger strength? What would help you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because I like the freedom and like to find the different doors, really working with a boss to think about the challenges and the problems ahead, and then kind of really giving me the freedom to tackle them and work across boundaries is really valuable for me.
Yeah.
So having kind of understanding what the challenge is, getting that big picture perspective from a boss who, has a larger vision or visibility than I do, and then allowing me the space and the bandwidth to really explore and dig into it in different ways, and work with a wide variety of people to tackle it, and then be able to check back in. But it's
Yeah.
that ability to have autonomy and clear purpose, and then an opportunity to explore and come up with solutions, which is what really excites me. And
Yeah.
that's what I get. I think it most valuable for me to leverage my ranger skill from a boss.
Awesome. Well, do you have anything you want to add, or any words of encouragement before we wrap up for other folks that are high in a ranger?
Well, going through this process, I think, is critical and really valuable for everyone to do, whether it's a ranger or another skill set. I also kind of recognize and learn that it's really not about what's the best or better one. It's really understanding our own set of skills, and how do we use them, and how do we work with others. And so that's what I think has been most valuable for me. And there's certain also, as you read through it, you kind of learn about, oh, I guess that is a strength of mine. So that really
Mhm.
identification is super valuable. And knowing what those are for your team is also helpful, because then that's kind of understanding, gives you help in understanding how to approach that. So I
Yeah.
find that really, really useful, not only knowing kind of my boss, but my peers and those who report to me, all of them, how do we support each other, and having this information, whether it's an arranger or someone else. And that's where also diversity, right?
Yeah.
I don't need another arranger on my team. I do that, right? I enjoy
Right.
doing that. If I have someone else like me, then they're going to do it. And I'm like, now what's my role? So I think it also speaks to
Good
the
point.
value of diversity of teams, of approaches and ideas, because we can all bring something different, and how critical that is, and how much more it adds. So that's another piece for me, is as you build a team, or as you modify and mold a team, it's how do you find those different skill sets that people can bring different pieces to the table, that overall helps the group succeed even more.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, Ben, I really appreciated your insights. This was fun. And thank you for, again, I know you're a busy guy, so I really appreciate you making the time for us today. Thanks so much for
Oh,
your
it's my
time.
pleasure. I love talking about it, and I love discussing. So thank you, Nancy. I appreciate the time.
Awesome.